Ready.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening
to the Outstanding Ohioans show.
Thanks for the Outstanding Ohio show.
Hosted by my daddy.
Hosted by my daddy.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan and Sawyer, for that wonderful introduction. This is indeed the Outstanding Ohioans show, and this is episode 54. Kind of a little different twist on this episode today. In this episode, I'm being interviewed by one of my staff teammates at the Miami University Rec Center, Angus McLeod, and we talked about a whole smorgasbord of topics related to leadership and personal philosophy and talking about the recreation industry. Hello, thank you for tuning in to the Outstanding Ohioans show, hosted by Siliko. Today we have episode 55 with Seth Cramer, who is the co-owner and GM of Phoenix Bats in Plain City, Ohio. Seth, welcome to the show.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Really excited to do this interview. Growing up as a child of the 80s, that's really when youth baseball transitioned from aluminum bats, and going to be talking to Seth today about how maybe that's now going back to wood bats and talking about the wood bats that they make and the customers that they work with at all levels of baseball, and just talk about the quality and the craftsmanship of the product that they produce. Seth, if you could take our listeners on a journey, where did you grow up and who were your main influences during that time?
Actually, it's funny. I actually grew up in Connecticut. I came out here to be a Buckeye in 1985, and here I sit today, 30-plus years later. So, my background is started out after school in banking, got into a little bit of accounting operations, and from there went ahead and did some sales and marketing, went back, got my MBA, was at a startup company for about 7.5 years, law enforcement technology company. Didn't end so well for me, but certainly great experience. And after, in 2007, I got the opportunity to hook up with a venture capital firm here in town who was one of the part owners of Phoenix Bats, and said, hey, would you like to come in and take a look at this company and see if you can help them improve and grow? And I said, where the heck is that? And they told me, well, it's right over in Plain City. And I said, never heard of it. And I came out and met the guys, and here I sit. This year, October, we went 9th year here at Phoenix Bats.
Okay. Hearing that intro, Seth, I've got some questions I want to ask about how venture capital works, because I have a feeling the audience would be very interested in that if
Sure.
they haven't heard about it before. Before that, can you talk about some of your early influences in life and what influences they specifically had with you?
Sure. I joke with people, certainly when it comes to the sports side, wasn't my strong suit. I joke that my conditioning skills clause in baseball kicked in at 9 years old, and became a fan after that. I grew up a Yankee fan and then a Met fan, and moved out here to Ohio and became an Indians fan, and that's where I sit today. I will say, certainly influences. I think my father was a lawyer, and certainly saw the, walking the line of integrity was very important. And certainly, from that point, I've just always been a strong believer in customer service. That's how you win at the end of the day. And I've seen that in all the different careers that I've had, that, products are products. And in our industry specifically, bats are hard for people to differentiate. I do think we have differentiation, but certainly one way we can do it is through service. So, my mentor today is a gentleman from Connecticut who I actually met here at Ohio State, came out to talk to one of my MBA classes, and he's been my business mentor for a number of years now, since 2000. And the reason why is because the guy was a self-made multimillionaire. I like his life story of how he got there. Nobody gave him anything. He did it all through hard work and dedication. And, those are the people that I'm certainly attracted to.
Okay. Seth, if you could talk about venture capitalists, because that's a term that some people hear a lot. Some people may have not heard of it. How do venture capitalists get involved with inventors and entrepreneurs, and what's their role in the process?
Sure. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different venture capitalists out there in terms of what they focus. A lot of them do focus on a specific industry or sector. The ones that certainly we connected with out here, what I like about them, NCT Ventures, who's in Columbus, what I liked about them is these were gentlemen who actually started their own business, made it successful, sold it off, used those proceeds to help create NCT Ventures, and we're very focused on young companies that needed some expertise and capital to grow. That's typically where you'll find venture firms fill in. It depends where in the cycle of the company they are. Most venture capital firms do like to come in later once the technology's been validated, once there's a track record. Typically before that, the three levels of investing they call our friends, family, and fools, which are the people who first put their money in. Then angel investors, who are just individuals who maybe have an interest in what you're investing in, which was the case with the law enforcement technology company that I helped found. And with this one, it was really their involvement, admittedly, came a very different way. They were one of the gentlemen who was an investor, the very first investor in Phoenix was their CFO. He had some life circumstances that caused him to have to exit the business. The venture capital firm bought him out to help him out. But they were good people and kept investing in the business because they really liked what Charlie Trudeau, our founder, was doing, believed in supporting local companies, and continued to invest in the company. So kind of an interesting path for them, didn't really fit their sweet spot, and they're no longer involved in the company from an ownership standpoint. I actually did buy part of their investment, and as did another party, but certainly it was a great people to learn from about how venture operated, but they're the type of venture people I like because they've done it themselves. So while venture people get a ugly word, it tends to be an ugly word in the media. I don't think that's very fair, especially for these type of guys who really did it themselves. And we've got some other great venture capitalists here in town as well who do focus on social issues and things like that. So it's not all bad as the media likes to make it out to be.
Right. And I don't know if it was the situation in this case. I've heard a lot of times with venture capital, they'll have, and it sounds like you got involved through the company because they want some oversight and can help with the management and processes. Is that fair to say?
Most definitely. That is very fair to say. That was exactly, they really, in candor, brought me in to figure out if this was a business that was salvageable or if it was a business that, because of where they're at and the progress that was made, maybe it was time to shut it down. And but they did believe in the people, and they believed in me, and so here we sit, almost 9 years later, and doing all right for ourselves. Continue to grow every year, so that's a great thing.
If you're someone that's sitting on the other side of the aisle that is looking for an investment for an idea or to grow their business, what do you recommend should be the approach to try and get venture capital involved in their operation?
Well, I think, at the end of the day, it's really about where they are in the life cycle of their company. So I think it's very difficult unless you're, a tech company, something out in Silicon Valley, or a medical device that, really has a strong multiple return for the venture company. Really somebody who's got an idea is more likely to have investors who are angel investors. These are, again, individuals who have, probably made it wherever they were and are looking to invest in early stage companies, very beginnings. And so some of the things that venture capital people are interested in, a reasonable track record of revenues and profit and things like that, or at least the potential for such. The angel investor is not going to be typically as critically focused on. They're probably more focused on the idea. But really, for the people who have an idea of their own and want to get it rolling, any investor is going to look to see, first of all, that they're committed. So if you're doing this part-time and it's kind of a side thing, the likelihood of getting somebody to invest in you certainly is dramatically reduced. They want to see, even if you don't financially have the money to put into the business, at least that you're putting in the sweat equity and that you're serious about it. And again, the very first investors typically are what they call friends, families, and fools, right? The people who are closest to you, who maybe they're investing because of you versus the idea, and that's typically where the first monies come from. But if you want to reach the venture capital people, prove your technology in whatever arena it is, get some customers, and then you have a more compelling case because it's been validated by people who actually pay to have that technology.
Okay. going back to Phoenix Bats, it looks like such a neat story on the website, and I'm sure you can expand it. How did Charlie Trudeau start the company? What was his vision, and how did he get involved with getting it up and running?
For Charlie, it was funny. It was kind of he fell into it per se. Charlie was after graduating from Ohio State, really became a wood craftsman. He was remodeling houses. If you're not familiar with the Columbus area, we have some beautiful old homes, and he would go in and remodel those homes. And when you were doing such, a lot of times you had beautiful old staircases that had spindles in them. And when you're working on a house from the 1800s, Home Depot and Lowe's does not tend to carry those pieces. So Charlie was actually recreating these spindles by hand. At the same time, he was playing vintage baseball. These are guys who played by 1860s rules, and if your listeners are unaware of such, these are guys who play without a glove. Pitching was underhanded back then. And if you need a bat from the 1860s, once again, you're not going to Dick's to find a bat from that era. So Charlie was playing for a team at our historical society here in Columbus, and they said, "Hey, Charlie, we know you're a wood craftsman. Do you think you could make us some bats?" So Charlie actually started his first bats by really looking at pictures online and, getting a hold of any bats that he could from that era, which you can imagine was pretty difficult. But it really was a passion for him. He wanted the challenge. He played vintage baseball, wanted to support that community, and he started doing more and more bats to the point where in 1996 he had a decision to make. It was either going to be bats or it was going to be remodeling houses. He couldn't do both, and he chose bats.
Mm-hmm. So what did you see or hear? How was the company growing and before your involvement, and then what did you do after you came on board to grow it further and expand?
Well, I think, the company was challenged in the fact that it was really two people who were involved on a regular basis, one gentleman in production and Charlie up front. My role to come in was probably use some of my background from business and my MBA, and that was to look at things more critically in terms of, what type of customer should we be going after, what should we be charging, what are our materials costs, kind of a little bit of the blocking and tackling that when, you're somebody like Charlie who's trying to man everything up front, you don't have as much time to focus on. So I really started to put some of those disciplines in, look at different ways we could do some processes, and kind of build it from there. And sure enough, we've grown quite a bit, probably about fivefold in terms of the number of units that we do. And so to me, it was kind of easy. You come in and you certainly cherry pick and you find the easiest things to correct and tackle and make improvements to our website. It's certainly been a big help. Get the right people in and get the right people doing the right things at the right time.
Something I'm curious about, Seth, is in baseball, most leagues do use aluminum bats, although the tide's changing a little bit on that. Louisville Slugger's been the renowned name forever for the people that do use wood bats. And you spoke about differentiation a little bit ago. How have you been able to get into that niche market and really prove that differentiation, prove that customer service, and improve that quality, and at the same time grow the sales?
Well, I think, a big part of that goes back to service, which is what you touched on. If I look at the competitors in our space, admittedly, I think a lot of them are, people who grew up playing the sport and think it's a really cool idea to make baseball bats, not recognizing kind of what really goes into it. So, we were fortunate in the fact that we had a gentleman who is very understood wood. We have the most advanced bat-making machine in the world, so for consistency, nobody's going to beat us. So then from there, it's just, it's figuring out, how to differentiate. And so for us, one of the things we've done is we give people a 10-day money-back guarantee. If you get a bat, you don't like it, give us a holler back. Send it back, swap it in for another bat. We give every customer one shot at that title. Because my idea was with an item that's tactile that you're going to have a hard time differentiating it by just looking at it on the web versus even other companies. So why not give people a chance to try it, to use it, and see what they like or dislike about it. So that's been one way that I've been very big on, and it's, again, the service aspect. When somebody breaks it out, we want to hear from them, and we want to help determine why it broke and treat them fairly in terms of if it's a wood quality issue, we're going to replace it. If it's an issue of a user error, then we do expect the customer to take some ownership for that issue. And that's probably the most challenging part of our business, but I just believe if you treat people fairly, that you'll build a base. And we're getting a lot of customers these days. When I ask them how they found out about us, they're saying, "Look, I went on a blog about baseball bats, and I have yet to find a bad thing said about your company. So I want to give you a try."
Oh, that's great. What kind of inroads are being made? Because I hear this all the time that youth leagues, I know colleges have talked about it, going back to the wood bats, I guess the con of that has always been, well, we went to aluminum because it was cheaper, they lasted longer. Right. How have you been able to push back on that and show people that wood bats are the better bat to use for a number of reasons?
Well, it's been interesting. So since I've been here, there's been some things that have happened from the rules side that have certainly supported the resurgence and renaissance of wood bats. So one example is if you recall, and your listeners recall, metal bats became pretty dangerous. The exit velocity of the ball coming off a bat, was to the point where it was killing people. And so that danger was addressed a number of years back, where there was a certification developed in baseball. It's called DB Corps. And this certification essentially is making the metal bat perform like a wood bat. It's dumbing down the metal bat. With this dumbing down, I actually thought it would really harm our business. I thought, oh, great, now we've got a direct competitor to a wood bat. But actually, it's improved our business, because what happened is these metal bat manufacturers, well, they've dumbed down the bats. They can't get them to perform equally to a wood bat. So you're still going to get more pop from a wood bat if you know how to use it properly. Mm-hmm. Then the other side of it was cost. The cost of the metal bats didn't go down. A lot of these metal bats are still $300, $400. Mm-hmm. While a wood bat, from us can be had anywhere from a first run bat from $95 to, let's say, $130. You can buy 3 or 4 bats for the price that you can buy one metal bat. And a lot of these players are replacing their metal bat every single year. So I like to joke that if your kid's going through 4 bats in a year, then maybe it's time to pick up a different sport than baseball. We're going to teach you how to hit right, then it's up to you to do it. So again, that economic equation has actually been flipped on its head, because the wood bats really, in the grand picture, are becoming a cheaper alternative and are really teaching kids how to hit properly. And if you have aspirations of becoming a pro, you better start swinging wood at a very early age, because you can ask any pro of today, and that's what they all do.
Mm-hmm. Speak to that a little bit for the people that in the audience that don't play baseball. The difference between the sweet spot on an aluminum bat, and you mentioned the necessary fundamentals of hitting the sweet spot on a wood bat, and how that can help you as a player in the long run.
Yep. Well, I mean, the wood bat, the metal bats, they really mask because they have very large sweet spots. So it doesn't really teach a player where to hit at the optimal point to create the most energy. Again, this is just a simple physics equation. The more energy that gets transferred to the ball, the further the ball is going to go. So the downside of metal bats has been that issue that it really, it masks flaws in swings, and it masks, flaws in where you should hit on a bat. So with the wood bat, especially with kids, if you ever look at a kid who swings a metal bat, most of them, the bats are stupid light, artificially light. So all these kids have a swing that almost looks like a golf swing, low to high, and they're hitting fly balls instead of line drives. What a properly weighted wood bat, which is the critical term, properly weighted, allows the kid to drive the ball, which is what it's all about. And they'll be driving balls into the gap instead of into the outfielder's mitt. So, that's been the real big thing about wood bats, and it goes beyond that. It's not just about having a properly weighted bat for the age that you are. It also goes into having the right type of wood based upon the hitter you are. So when people contact us, we're not asking them, one of the first questions is not how you hit, it's how you miss hit. Because we know at the high school level and up, if they tend to miss hit off the end of the bat, a maple bat's going to be a terrible choice for them. It doesn't have any flex to it, which is what you need to alleviate the shock. So have you ever seen in a pro game where the barrel head goes flying off? Typically a maple bat, and they typically hit it off the very end. Conversely, if you're the type of hitter who tends to hit further down the barrel when you miss it, a maple bat would be the right choice for you, because it's going to be the strongest wood. So if you tend to miss hit further down, go with maple. If you tend to miss hit off the end, go with ash. And if you're a guy like me who's just not that good, you probably want to go with birch, because birch has it's closer in strength to maple, but does have some of the flexibility of an ash bat. I will say the downside to ash is obviously that if you don't hit it on the proper side of the bat where the grain lines are stacked, you have a greater chance of breaking it. So for high school kids, I'm a big proponent of birch over for either of the other two woods.
I see. What's Charlie's philosophy been? Because I know there's a shift in the game, and again, I think it's gone back a little bit. Starting in the 70s, 80s, the bats really became thin-handled, and were really all the weight was focused on the barrel. What's his philosophy been with getting them?
Look, it's very simple, right? I mean, as the players progressed and they got physically more gifted, the pitching became faster. So the bats of 20, 30 years ago were, for most players, not bats that could be used today. They would be too heavy. You have to remember, in modern baseball, from the point it leaves a pitcher's hand to the point that it gets to the catcher's mitt is 0.7 seconds. So the bats of years gone by, including the vintage bats and bats in the early to mid-1900s, you'd never be able to get around fast enough to hit the ball. That's why you've got these big barrels and thin handles now. Now, yes, they're not very durable, but when you're a big league player, you're getting those bats for free. The team must purchase your bat for you so they can afford to get them. Now, for our amateur players, we're much more focused on balanced bats and bats that are just better designs, more durable designs. But that is the whole reason why you have these big barrel thin handles and why you have more bats breaking. Because once again, just bad physics. You can't have more weight at one end, a little weight at the other, and expect it's going to be as durable as the bat of years gone by that were pretty thick all the way throughout and had thicker handles.
How particular is Charlie when he selects his wood suppliers for his bats that he makes?
Let's put it this way. We've been told we use primarily one mill. We do use a second mill. But our primary mill has told us numerous times that we are the pickiest bat manufacturer when it comes to wood quality. And they kind of said that to us as, you guys are a little bit of a pain in the butt to deal with. But you know what? That's what we want to be known for. That's the type of company I want us to be, because it means we're paying that extra special attention to the quality of wood that goes in a player's bat. So how bat companies differentiate? You may get a great bat for your pro player, but the bat you or I may get may not be as good. Well, I don't believe in that philosophy. The wood we use, this premium grade wood, is the palette of wood we get in, we use for our pros and for our amateurs. So the difference between what we're giving our pros and our amateurs is very minimal. Yes, all bats have to have straight grain. It just may be that the ones that have the most even of spacing in between, yes, those pieces we are pulling for our pros, that's much more about cosmetics than it is about performance. But you can look at some other companies where they're buying different grades of wood for their pros versus their amateurs, and then charging their amateurs more for the same models. And I just don't believe that's a way to build a long-term customer, and I just believe that lacks integrity.
Have you seen a shift in your business from individual purchases to now teams at all levels buying in bulk to supply their teams?
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's more about the time of year.
Okay.
At the beginning of the year, you're dealing a lot more with your pros. By about March, you're starting to see your amateurs roll in. Towards the summer, probably more of your youth. Certainly do a bunch of fungos, bats for coaches to hit pop-ups and grounders for practice. And we do a large trophy bat business as well. So non-game bat, something you're going to give out as a sales award or hang on your wall or something like that. So, I think it's more about the time of year is really what dictates the customer.
Okay. What do you see trending, Seth, as... Is there becoming more acceptance? It seems like some summer leagues, there are certain summer leagues that will use the wood bats.
Yep.
Specifically, I guess, high school and college. What do you see trending there?
Well, I think what you're seeing is definitely more wood bat usage. I don't believe the number of people playing wood bat baseball has increased, the number of people playing big ball has increased. I believe what has increased is the number of people who are playing wood bat baseball. So you don't have more players, you just have more players who are using wood bats. So you're seeing a lot more wood bat tournaments pop up at all different ages. We have a fantastic tournament here in town, in Columbus, the Worthington Wood Bat Tournament, which has grown. I think when we started working with Travis Cox, he does a fantastic job with the tournament. When he started, it was like 20-something teams. This last year, he had 180 in his tournament. So I think what you're finding is you're just seeing more and more teams that want to play wood bat baseball, because at the end of the day, they understand, the coaches understand the lessons that are come out of it, and the kids get to play real baseball. It becomes not about how much you spend on your bat. It becomes about talent. Now, as you get up to the collegiate levels, some of your lower divisions, they actually do use wood bats. But you have to remember, in your Division Ones, the top divisions, money comes into play because a lot of these coaches are getting paid, and schools are being paid by the metal bat companies to use their bats. So it's the will of the people versus the big money of the metal bat companies, because the margins on metal bats are tremendously high versus a wood bat. So those people who are the your usual suspects of the metal bat companies are certainly going to do whatever they can to make sure they maintain their market share. And they can afford to pay the coaches and pay the schools because they know that the players are going to follow suit and get their bats.
Right.
But I think, but the scouts, if you ask any scout, they'd much rather see a kid hit with wood, because wood is the real indicator of the true talent that they have. So, I think at some point you'll see more and more wood bats coming into play. We're certainly seeing more and more of it. Will it ever reach Division I? Again, will it people versus the big money spent by metal bat companies to retain market share?
For the audience out there that are baseball fanatics, what are some players at the professional level that do use the Phoenix bats?
Well, let me talk about one specifically, because we're an Ohio company. We like to tout the Ohio guys. So one of the guys we're most proud of is Adam Eaton. Adam Eaton plays for the Chicago White Sox, which is an Indians fan, is a bit painful for me. But he's a super nice guy. Adam actually grew up in Springfield, Ohio. He played his college ball at Miami of Ohio, was drafted by the Diamondbacks, and just shot up through their organization. Adam's a great guy because if you look at him statistically as a player, he may not lead in offensive, categories, home runs, things like that. But if you look at his stats that matter, one of the top players in baseball. The other great thing about Adam is he's a really nice guy, very down to earth. He's about 5'9". I thought all ball players were really tall, but he's just a normal-looking guy. But he's got a lot of hustle, a lot of grit. And the best part about Adam is when he's not hitting well, he gets it that it's him and not the bat. Because a lot of these guys believe it is the inanimate object that is causing them not to hit well.
Mm-hmm. We're very familiar with Adam. I work at Miami University, so got to see him play while he was here. Great ball player.
Yep, and super nice guy.
I know on your website, Seth, people can take tours, learn more information. If you could talk about the tours, learn more, where they can go to learn more information, and how they can order a bat if they wish.
Yeah, sure. Yep, definitely. So we do tours. We do scheduled tours and open tours. Our scheduled tours are basically for people who have groups of 10 or more that would like to schedule a tour at a specific time, typically Monday through Friday. We do those about 9 to 6 p.m. would be when we want to close up. But, what we realized is a lot of people don't have that many people in their group, so we want to give them the opportunity to come over and, again, see a bat machine, a level of technology they're not going to see anywhere but one other company in the world, and it is not that little company down in Kentucky that you may have heard of. So we allow people, it's just $10 per person. We give them an hour-long tour. We take them through basically how Charlie founded the business, talk about some of our pros, talk about the woods that we use, how the design process is changed through the years, and then we actually go on the shop floor right up in front of the machine and watch bats being run. And from there, we'll go into the back of the shop and talk about the finish. So we take them through the entire process. If any of your listeners have done the Louisville tour, the common theme is, yes, we don't have as cool a building, we get that. But as far as the tour goes and the depth that we go and wanting to get people up close, we definitely excel at that. We don't have videos to watch. You're not standing behind glass to view something. You're actually getting out there and getting it up in front of it and seeing it, seeing the tours. So those open tours we actually have on Mondays and Fridays at 1:30, and then Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. People can show up, up till tour time. Anybody who shows up is going to get a tour. We don't have a pecking order when you show up as to who gets a tour. Everybody who shows up does get a tour. I certainly recommend that if you are interested in a tour, you check out our website, which is phoenixbats.com, and you'll actually see in the lower right of our website, at the very bottom of the page under customer service, there is a the right-hand column, second down, is a link for plant tours where there is more information. So again, phoenixbats.com, go under customer service, plant tours, and there's a wealth of information there.
Do people get to test out the bats? Do you throw pitches to them?
No, we don't do that. We actually did used to have a batting cage next door where when people came in to purchase a bat, we'd actually take them next door door and let them try some bats out. But as the company has grown over the years, we needed more space, and we took back that area to use for production. So I guess the growth has caused some things to go by the wayside, but I think that's probably a pretty good reason to reclaim that space.
Out of curiosity, knowing, for example, the popularity of baseball in Japan, Latin America, and those kind of countries, have you made any inroads to foreign markets?
Yeah, yep, we actually do certainly, obviously, Canada, we do ship bats to. Canada's very interesting in that about 12 years and up, they're actually swinging all wood across Canada, which is really amazing. I wish we were that progressive here in the U.S., but we're not. But yeah, we ship bats all around the world. There's a winter league down in Dominican Republic. We've done bats for teams and players there. We have done bats in the Asian market through a partner. Very funny, Asian market is very different. The bats all tend to be, they want them as light as possible, very thin handles. Knobs tend to be really huge. So a very different design, and probably one of the most interesting things about the Asian market is if there is any slight flaw in the bat, even if it's just a mineral standing up the wood, they believe that the bat has been cursed, and they certainly don't want to accept those bats. So it's a kind of odd scenario to work with, makes it a little more challenging, but every market has its own nuance that you pick up on and try to do your best with.
I've read a biography where Ted Williams sounds like he was very similar in that if he saw one imperfection, he shipped it back. So there's certainly people tuned into that. Something that we focus on this show a lot, Seth, and if you could share with the audience, you talked about how your growth of Phoenix bats has been fivefold. What does that mean for the city of Plain City? How many employees are working there, and what does that mean for the local economy?
Yep. Well, when we started out, we were at least let's put it this way. When I came in, we were a business of 3 people. We now employ, I think, 8, maybe 9, because we did just hire a new person in production. So, certainly we're, I think, doing our job to get monies back into the local coffers from taxes, wage tax, and things like that. We're certainly doing our best to buy as many things as we can locally. We have a fantastic supplier for our decals. We do buy our woods all from domestic sources. We're very big on doing as much as we can. Obviously, all American made, but even getting American resources coming in as well. For all of our apparel, we work with local companies. So we're really trying to do what we can to support the local businesses, and there's a lot of great businesses here in Ohio and in the Columbus area, and those are relationships that we value and continue to work with those people. We get asked a lot by other companies, but at the end of the day, we're trying to share the loyalty back that those people have shown the loyalty to us when we were a smaller company than we were today.
That's wonderful. What's the best business advice you could give the audience if you have one single mantra that you follow?
For me, probably the biggest one is understand who your customer is. Basically, sell to the right person at the right time at the right amount. And if we're doing that, we can be successful. It sounds pretty simplistic, but it's amazing to me how many people wander away from that principle. We've been asked many times to do other things, but those are distractions. And when you're a growing business, you want to do anything you can to bring in revenue and chase after any possible opportunity and sell to whoever at whatever price. But it's not really a good business strategy. You end up having a very short-term customer who is not loyal. You end up giving away margin that you don't need to give away. So for us, it's really stay focused. Do the right things. Don't, the definition of insanity is don't do the same things over and over again that you've done before and think all of a sudden they're gonna turn out different. Again, a very simplistic idea that's been out there for years and years, but I'm always stunned when I hear about some of the businesses that we know of and the way they're approaching it. It's just, you understand why they fail. I mean, great example, Louisville Slugger, who is the big dog in the space, was sold last year to a company over in Finland. This is an iconic brand, an iconic American brand. It was sold at a price that stunned me. And I think admittedly they were a family-run business, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're myopic and don't look to see what's going on in the market around you, then unfortunately that's what happens. Your big brands, unfortunately, are no longer American companies.
That's great advice, Seth. If the audience wanted to reach out to you directly, do you have a phone number or email you care to share?
Yep. Yeah, sure. You can. Our phone number here at the shop is 877-598-2287. And they can certainly reach me at Seth, S-E-T-H, at phoenixbats.com.
Well, Seth, I really enjoyed the opportunity to interview you today. If you can hold the line as I sign off, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem, Rod. I very much enjoyed it, and hopefully I get to interact with your listeners soon enough.
Great. Thank you for tuning in to the Outstanding Ohioans show. This was episode 55, and today we interviewed Seth with the Phoenix Bat Company, and great interview, great company, great product, and hopefully you can try it out and hear what the rave reviews are about. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.